Hey, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Frank About Health in honor of Cardiac Awareness Month. I'm here this week with Evan Mestman, returning again from last November when he came on Frank About Health to discuss his company, ProAttitudes. If you recall, that episode was losing weight with your mind. And in this case, he's going to talk about how ProAttitudes help people live a healthier life, especially if they have cardiac issues or they tailor make their own nutrition programs with Evan so that they would be able to maintain their heart health. So, the name of this episode is Nutrition for a Healthier Heart. That being said, I want to issue my disclaimer. If you are already undergoing any treatment plan for your cardiac care, this particular episode of Frank About Health is not trying to dissuade you from that plan. It's only trying to add additional quote unquote food for thought so that you can determine if maybe ProAttitudes is a program that you would also want to become part of. At the same time, it's just for you to have discussion with us live right here on talkradio.nyc or on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook or on Twitch. And that way we can actually answer any questions live if you have any. But more importantly, we're going to learn throughout the hour how ProAttitudes and Evan works with people who may or may not have heart health problems, but in honor of Heart Health Month, I'm wearing my colors. We want to be able to just take the discussion focused on that segment of the population. We all know that nutrition is for a healthier mind, healthier weight, healthier blood pressure. The list goes on, but this episode is dedicated to the heart. That all being said, Evan, welcome to Frank About Health again. And I'm really glad that you're able to help us from the cardiac perspective on this particular episode. Unmute. Yeah.
There you go. Don't you love that? The mute button. Thank you. I'm grateful for you to have me back on.
No problem. My pleasure. So tell me, overall, how has ProAttitudes dealt with people who have cardiac issues or trying to be preventative in having cardiac problems when they get older?
Well, most Americans, we live our lives not realizing that our health is only priceless when we lose it. And the number one killer in the United States today, do you know what it is? It's heart disease. That's why we have a whole month devoted to it, right? There
Right,
are
right.
660,000 people that die every year from heart disease. Do
Wow.
you know what the number one symptom is for nearly half of them?
No.
49.7%.
What is it? What is it?
Sudden death. They don't get a second chance. Yeah.
Mm,
Well, that's one of the reasons why I do what I do. When I went for my master's in clinical nutrition, I did my master's thesis on cardiac rehab because I really want to understand what's going on. I worked in a cardiologist's office and we had a cohort of people who had gone through CABG, which is a bypass surgery, and then put them through a 6-week nutrition intensive program to see if we could impact their numbers, their cholesterol. Back then, we really didn't understand cholesterol as well as we do now. But we got them to lose weight. We got them to exercise. We got them to eat healthier. And sure enough, we got better blood sugar control. We got better weights. We improved their chances for survival post CABG, post surgery. And the big issue today is with people is that they don't realize that you can't just take a medication and think that it's going to solve your cardiac problem.
right.
So many people are on statins today. So many people are taking diabetes medication. I mean, when we think about the illnesses today, chronic illnesses that we have, like diabetes, heart disease, cancer, autoimmune dysfunction, I don't believe they're just diseases of metabolism. I believe they're diseases of the neural pathways in our brain from our habits, the habits that we have. And a medication is not going to solve that. And I think that's part of the problem where when I worked in the hospital setting and in private practice, if people had gone for bypass surgery, they ended up coming back in 6 to 8 years being reoccluded, blocked again. Why? Because they never changed. they continued smoking, or they continued eating the way they did. They became sedentary again. And those habits are hard to change when you just go on a diet and you
Right.
go to a cardiac rehab center and say, okay, we're going to do 6 weeks while you're, insured, and you're going to do these exercises. And then as soon as the insurance runs out, what do? Go back to sit
Go
and watch
back to the old
TV.
ways.
Yeah, yeah. So part of the challenge is it's about changing the lifestyle in America, or actually the whole world. When
Hmm.
when you look back in the 19th century, 1 in 10,000 people had diabetes. Now, I say
Hmm.
diabetes because it's a metabolic disorder, and heart disease and diabetes really go almost hand in hand. They're pretty much the
Right.
metabolic process is you're going to get heart disease if you have diabetes, not
Right.
necessarily going to have diabetes. You're going to have heart disease, but it works that way. But now it's 1 in 11, one in
Hmm.
10,000 to 1 in 11. We have more
Incredible.
medications, we have more technology. What's going on? We're being overfed. We're feeding our
Right.
bodies the wrong foods, and our lifestyles are completely, really not compatible with how our bodies were designed hundreds of thousands of years ago, or even in 1.2 million years that we've been around, but really probably 300,000 years ago. And then the agricultural revolution came up, maybe 1,000 years ago, and we've not been able to cope. And now,
Hmm.
at least the research that's out there shows that there are a lot of indicators that show that genes that people will have, genetic markers that they have where genes are expressed, means our bodies are making things with these genes as part of our DNA.
Right.
Sometimes we have genes that are not compatible with grains or carbohydrate loads. And sometimes our bodies are not able to handle the fat load. And sometimes our bodies are not able to even handle other things like being inactive. And so that's why when you look at populations, there are certain populations of people who end up with much higher risk of heart disease and diabetes than others. But the good news is we can change our habits. We can change
Right.
what we eat. We can change our stress levels, which is also contributing. All of these
Incredible.
things are doable. And so it's not all doom and gloom.
Well, you did come on the show back in November and discuss how we are in charge of what we put in our mouth just based on our thought patterns and our pathways and things like that. But were you able to come up with that model based on a particular type of client, like a cardiac client, or was it a diabetic client, or was it just everyone across the board? What was the main focus that got you in? Was it the cardiac patient or non-cardiac oriented patients?
I don't think it was any specific type of patient. I was in a cardiac hospital. So being in that hospital and being in that critical care on Long Island, there's St. Francis is a world-renowned cardiac care hospital that I worked in the critical care unit. So
Right.
this was filled with people. This was an aha moment for me because people think, oh, I'm gonna just if I eat horribly, or if I'm overweight, if I have diabetes, I'm gonna end up with heart disease. So I'm just starting out in this cardiac unit, and I'm going around seeing patients. The first
Yes.
patient I meet is 28 years old, in phenomenal shape. He is um, I would he's a fourth degree or sixth degree black belt, does that for a living,
Right.
just had a heart attack.
Huh.
Okay. Then we have another guy who's a little older in his 30s, probably was taking cocaine, ended up with a heart attack. Then we go to the next room. There's a lawyer who's in his 40s, late 40s, a runner,
Yeah.
really great shape also, high stress job, just needed a quadruple bypass. Then we go to another room where we have a morbidly obese person with diabetes, and he has all the markers. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can predict that he has heart disease. He needed a quadruple bypass. Amazing. I'm looking at all these people. The lawyer had normal
Yes.
cholesterol.
Yeah.
The young guy who was 6th-degree black belt, he was eating McDonald's every day or those kinds of fast foods and really wasn't taking care of himself from that perspective, but was exercising plenty. The lawyer was under so much stress, even though he was a runner, the stress did him in. So that was an aha moment for me where, you know what, it needs to be multifactorial. You can read what the American Heart Association says, right? You can read American Diabetes Association says, and even my association, American Dietetic Association. But what I'm going to tell you is the last 50 years, we've been doing a disservice to the entire population by saying eat low fat and high carbs because our bodies are not designed to manage that. Now, why I don't remember the names of the influencers that were doctors that came up with these, concepts. They actually created policy, and that policy was flawed based on, well, we need to lower cholesterol. We need to lower cholesterol by eating less fat, less saturated.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that saturated fat's not correlated with heart disease, but what I am saying is, what kind of diet do you want? It's very hard to study diet because there's so many factors. There was a wonderful study that came out just recently, back in November, that was looked at 21 identical twins. So we were able to remove a lot of variables, and they looked at exercise, they looked at biomarkers, they looked at diet, and they compared a vegan diet to an omnivore diet. And it was really fascinating watching these 21 pairs of twins and looking at really what were some of the issues. To me, the issues were their habits. The ones that did the best were the ones that were able to change their habits. And the omnivore diet did the best, believe it or not, not the vegan.
Interesting.
Now, why? Because we were designed, when you think about how our bodies were designed over the last several thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, we were hunters and gatherers, but we lived in many different places. So we evolved in many different places. If you're in the savannah over in Africa versus up in the mountains in Northern Europe versus the American Indians, right? And then you just China, I mean, every single indigenous population has been influenced by what they were, what was in their environment and how their genetics played out. And so you can't just say there's one diet for everybody. That's the thing. So it's really the habits they have, and there are basic principles we can talk about that I think that if we get the American population to start focusing on this, they're going to see that they can lower their risk of heart disease, they can lower the risk of any metabolic disease, and in the inflammatory response, and even the type 3 diabetes, which is Alzheimer's. All of these things can happen if they start taking a look at their habits and improving them.
That being said, as we go into segment 2, now that you've gotten the insight and the overview about how ProAttitudes has evolved in understanding your habits over your nutrition, the cardiac patient apparently served as part of his model. So we're going to go through the break, and I'm going to show you the website of ProAttitudes. I'm going to scroll down, and if you're interested in participating after the show, you'll have ways of contacting Evan. Remember, as part of my disclaimer, these are not the views of talkradio.nyc or of Frank About Health, but they are the views of, again, using your mind to have a healthier nutrition, lifestyle, as well as a healthier heart. We will be back in a few, right here on talkradio.nyc. See you soon.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Broncu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hey, everybody. By the way, Evan, did you see your whole website scroll down nicely or? Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure because I know when we sometimes record the show, sometimes it doesn't appear. And I want to make sure that all of your details were present, including you mentioned where people can download your new version of your book. Do you want to actually discuss that a little bit and how it may even reference heart health issues that you mentioned in the previous section?
Well, the things that we're going to talk about are going to be today are something you can find in my book. I sell it on Amazon, but you can get a free download on my website. I'd be happy to share it with you. The basic simple principles of healthy eating. Part of the challenge today is that people don't really even know what to eat, most likely because it's the paradox of choice. There's just too many choices. There's 600,000 foods to choose from in the supermarket today. It used to be a few hundred, then a few thousand, then it was 30,000, it's 600,000, but realize that 75% of those foods are processed or highly processed, and they have hidden ingredients in them that are making food addictive, making you want to eat them. And those foods they don't serve you. And that's the challenge today, that when we start eating those foods, our bodies are not designed to eat that way. It's causing this epidemic today of obesity. We have 71% of Americans are either overweight or obese. I've heard that we're almost up to 80%, but I'm still on those statistics. I'll use. It's just amazing. 51% of Americans are either pre-diabetic or have diabetes. Half of the people who have diabetes in the United States don't even know they have it. And if you don't know you have it, the elevated blood sugar and the elevated insulin levels, because we're not really sure what's causing the damage, but I think that the latest research is really, really fascinating, where it's elevated insulin levels that are really causing the damage in our body. They damage our kidneys, they damage our eyes, they damage all the small blood vessels, if you can consider where small blood vessels are, okay? They're going to damage those things. And you can end up with a very high risk of losing a limb, which is what happens usually with diabetes. 20 years in diabetes, you go blind. You can have neuropathy, which means you're going to lose sensation in your fingers and your toes. And the risk of heart disease, we've already talked about that, your risk of stroke. The reason why the risk of dying of sudden death, it's not from a heart attack, it's arrhythmias and all the other cardiac issues that occur that they're still trying to figure out. We don't understand heart disease nearly as much as we should. And that's the real challenge, is that...
Now, okay, go ahead.
No,
I was going to say, with sudden death, is that happening while they're sleeping? Or is that happening?
It can happen in anything. I was working in a cardiologist's office, and somebody had gotten on the Bruce protocol, which is the stress test machine, and the doctor just gave him a clean bill of health. got off the Bruce protocol, and all of a sudden you hear the screaming, dropped dead of a heart attack. Now that was a heart attack, but it could have been from an arrhythmia. It could, but it didn't show up on the Bruce protocol. It can happen at any time. Now that was, I was doing that over 30 years ago. I was working in that office. There are Holter monitors now. There are new technologies, but we're still the number one killer in the United States is still heart disease. And what are they doing? They're, instead of focusing on habits, which is what the problem is, they're focusing on medication. Their first line of defense is medication. Doctors will say, oh no, I tell them to diet and exercise. They don't. Because if it was happening that way, we wouldn't have this epidemic. And we'd be having people asking in supermarkets for more fresh produce and more fresh vegetables and fruits and more of the foods that are going to help promote health versus all the processed foods.
So it's the consumeristic mentality of the United States that essentially enables
the Western society is influencing. Yeah. There's a great documentary called Why Are We Fat by Simon Gault. And it's interesting. It's not on Netflix anymore, but it was in New Zealand. It was in 2017. You can find it on YouTube. And it's everywhere. That these statistics are so alarming because it's spreading everywhere around the world. The Western society. Now they've done research where they've taken the indigenous people in Australia and they've had them spend 6 weeks go back out into the indigenous way of living. 6 weeks of it. They lost on average 12 to 20 kilograms. It's a lot of weight to lose. And their diabetes their numbers were nearly normal. And they started eating the way the indigenous people ate. They would eat kangaroo, right? They'd hunt the kangaroo. So that requires a lot of energy, right? We used to have to struggle to find food. Now we're gluttons. We eat 3 meals a day, huge amounts of calories. The average American is eating close to 3,600 calories a day. And that's really what's causing the problem. We're eating too many calories and we're eating too many high calorie dense, low nutrient dense foods. So the first thing I want to teach everybody, if you want a healthier heart, is to take the foods you're eating and instead of just saying, hey, I have to go on a diet, I want you to think about eating a food that has the most quality calories. Now, what's a quality calorie? It's a food that has the most nutrition with the least amount of fat and sugar in it and the least amount of processing. So when you go and have dinner tonight or the next meal that you have, I don't want you to say, I'm just going to go from low quality all the way to high quality. All I want you to do is to say, okay, how can I increase the quality of the calories that I'm eating? If I'm going to have a cheeseburger and French fries and it's over here, well, maybe I could switch to a turkey burger. It's not going to increase it that much, but that's an improvement. Maybe I could have a bison burger. That's going to be healthier, believe it or not. Okay. And I'm going to get grass-fed. That's going to be even better. Instead of French fries, I'm going to have air-fried sweet potatoes. Instead of cheese, I'm going to have lettuce and tomato. Now, it's not going to go all the way, but it's going to be a better quality. And maybe even we take the bun off and we use the lettuce, a lettuce bun. There are so many different ways that we can improve the quality of the calories that we eat and everything that we eat just by thinking low fat meaning not non-fat, okay, and not highly processed. So instead of a hamburger, having something like a piece of fish or grilled chicken breast, that's lower fat. Or eating a piece of fish that has omega-3 fatty acids in it that might have a little more fat in it, but the omega-3 fatty acids that are in fish help lower your risk of heart disease and inflammation.
Right. The omega-3s are always best for the heart. I guess here's the question then. I'm noticing from what you're saying that it's a combination where it's known, very popularized, even in other documentaries, that American food is manufactured, processed, distributed. There are additives, preservatives, all of that kind of already defeats the purpose of having healthier food unless you go out and harvest it yourself, whether it's vegetables, fruits, or like in certain fishes. But at the same time, the way the mass media hypes and commercializes particular brands and foods, it's like they're trying to make food your drug of choice rather than using actual, hard drugs or other narcotic substances. I guess, what would you say is the part of the, would you say is a twofold reason, which is what I'm assuming here, or what I'm picking up, that the society that we live in, coupled with the underdeveloped or not fully developed foods that are available, are kind of enabling this not pandemic, epidemic of not healthy food. It's just and also the doctors issuing drugs instead of nutritional programs. They're just knowing that there's more market share out there in the purchase of these drugs. So what would you say? It's like a chicken and egg thing. What would you say is part of the motivation for why our society has a big statistic of 80% obesity right now?
I think it's going to be, first of all, that we wake up every day and we sit down for breakfast.
Right.
Then we go to work and we sit down. Then we get up and go to have lunch and sit down. Then we go back to work and sit down. And then we come home and sit down for dinner. And then we sit down in front of the TV. And then we go to bed and start all over again. So part of the problem is our bodies were not designed to be inactive. So we need to make sure that a good part of the day that we're focusing on activity. And there are certain ways that we can do that. I know that some people are behind a desk. I am too. I get that. But we've got to make a commitment to start using muscle. The best prescription out there, if doctors had to prescribe exercise like it was medicine, it would be the number one prescription. It will reverse all the problems that you're having, or most of the problems that you have with having problems with insulin resistance and hyperglycemia, where your body is having elevated blood sugars and elevated levels of insulin, and also just not functioning properly at the cellular level. We need to tell our bodies, we have to stress our bodies by doing certain types of exercise, whether it's weight training to build muscle, and just the contraction of the muscle creates a whole cascade of hormones and chemical reactions and enzymes that are going to get our body to do what it needs to do and put us in the right metabolic state. The other thing is that we have to stop feeding our body so much. And I know food tastes great. There is a pleasure principle to food, and I'm all for that. But you need to learn that you can enjoy high quality calorie foods just as much as low quality calorie foods. And teaching the inner city kids, teaching affluent kids, teaching everybody out there, because it starts with the kids, makes a difference. And they've done the research to show that it also will get rid of there's an influence on diet on depression, that when you feed the body correctly, you feed the gut, which 70% of your immune system is down in the gut, and it also affects your mood, you can put depression into remission just by changing the diet. They've done this where you can also just change the diet, and you can start seeing these kids that are in the school that are morbidly obese. Some kids are 33% of the kids, some of them are overweight and obese in the United States. Diabetes in these kids is rampant. It's never was seen before. It's so sad because it's going to be such a burden, billions of dollars on our healthcare system. So these are just, some of the things, a simple thing of just saying, hey, how can I increase the quality of calories? Getting rid of liquid calories is a huge one. No more soda. Start drinking water, or use
smoothies.
I'm sorry, what?
Smoothies.
Well, no, smoothies are still liquid calories. I would tell you, no, I don't want you using smoothies, because a lot of people are putting a lot of fruit. They're putting sweetener in it. It's not the solution. Now, if it's a smoothie that's based on vegetables and there's just a half a cup of fruit in there, that works. But most people don't do that. Most smoothies out there are liquid calories. Alcohol. I tell you that the way our food supply is as toxic as alcohol is. Our livers are over fat, our bodies are over fat, and our bodies are breaking down, and we're losing our longevity because of it.
Well, speaking about losing our longevity, we're about to take our second break, but what I want to do when we come back on the third segment is see what role genetics plays into it and get further discussion from you on that, because a lot of it could be learned from our ancestors for all we know, or at the same time, when you develop certain habits, you could be activating certain genes that kind of pre-program you to remain addicted to food, even if it's against your better judgment or your better health. So when we return and we're looking for nutrition for a healthier heart, we will be back with Evan Mestman as we talk about genetic components to a healthier heart, as well as other recommendations that we will uncover. So please stay tuned right here on talkradio.nyc and on all of our socials. We'll be back in a few.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hey everybody, this is just a little bit of a production notice. If you noticed during the commercial break, those of you watching the show at the moment, I was going back and forth with my computer trying to show images of Hilton. I was with poor success in getting you even one photo. But the bottom line is that the particular tribute to Heart Health Awareness Month couldn't have happened if it wasn't for my live show that I did at the Doubletree Chicago with Karen Ross. And that being said, I'm just paying homage to her, not being here at the moment by wearing the red jacket symbolizing Cardiac Awareness Month. We've been having a nice discussion, not just with Karen 2 or 3 weeks ago, but also with Maury Zelkovich last week when he talked about AI and heart healthcare, and now this week with Evan. And we just want to be able to continue the pattern here at Frank About Health in our collaborative efforts with Hilton to be able to have a leadoff show at a Hilton where we talk about what the Heart Health Awareness Month is, and then continue to do episodes throughout the month that mirror that narrative that we're starting to create here. But technical difficulties aside, I think our conversation with Evan has already provided enough visualization for what is going on with our minds when we are busy indulging in foods that are not good for us out of habitual learning or out of just not thinking before we eat. And that is why, especially if you have been suffering from the number one cause of death in our nation, you have to get on board the right train of thought, literally. And I'm hoping that ProAttitudes is something that you listeners out there will become more involved with, because I can tell you I'm already involved with ProAttitudes since Evan was on the show in November. And although I haven't seen too much change yet, I can say that some of my thought patterns have changed in the way I want to approach each show, for example, or how I want to be able to approach each discussion. Because when you have improved your mental state, not only will your nutrition improve, but also other areas of your life. So here at Frank About Health, what am I doing? I'm always continuing to advocate for various ways of life that we all go through depending on our circumstances. But for Heart Health Awareness Month, we want to beat the odds, and hopefully cardiac problems won't be the leading cause of death in the future if things are done right. Now, Evan, that being said, What would you say about the genetic components to all of this?
Well, it's a
How
great
reliant are
question.
we?
Yes. So everybody thinks genetics plays a huge role, and genetics definitely influences it. But genetics is like, if you're building a house, it's like the blueprints for the house. So everybody has a different blueprint. Sometimes the living room is really small and the bathroom is really large, but it's how the materials that you use to build the house are your habits. Think about, my mom used to say I was made of peanut butter because I ate peanut butter so much, but we are what we eat sometimes. That's part of the challenge. And there is that's what the documentary was about. We are what we eat. And when you look at genetics, it's just the threshold, what your potential is. Epigenetics is the expression of those genes. And that's something we have there's a huge variability there that we can influence that by our thoughts, our feelings, our attitude. And that's really where I come in, where I like to work with my clients on changing the way that they see things, reframing it. And suddenly they start firing different neural pathways. The neurons that fire together, wire together, and then you create new neural pathways. And those new neural pathways are habits. Habits really make the difference. But understand that if you're in the habit of waking up every day, let's pretend that in this hand, I have the healthiest food you can think of. What would it be?
An orange.
Okay, how about the healthiest meal? What would be the healthiest meal?
Oh, a salmon and vegetables.
Salmon and broccoli. Okay. Now, this is the most unhealthy meal. What would it be?
Double-decker cheeseburger.
There you go. With French fries.
McDonald's.
Right? With French fries too. Okay. So neither one is going to make a difference long-term in your health. It's what you do every day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, that's going to have the impact. That one meal never made a person ill or fat unless they're having it. There are always exceptions to the rule. They can't handle all the fat, or they have diabetes and their blood sugars go out of control, but it's not going to make them lose their eyesight from one meal. It's not going to cause all the damage. It's the things that we do over time. So if you can understand that it starts with awareness, saying, okay, I need to be a fly on the wall and be aware of what am I doing every day that's making a deposit in my health, and what's something I'm doing every day that's making a withdrawal. And if you just become aware of that and you start focusing on that, what ends up happening is you start seeing that there is a pattern. There's a pattern to things that trigger you to eat for deposits and for withdrawals, as well as exercise, as well as stress. And that's really where ProAttitudes comes in, is that I help you identify your whole lifestyle. What is it that you're having challenges with? And how can you slowly but surely make changes? Because change has to feel good. If it doesn't feel good, you're going back to what you did before. But it requires discipline. So it's not easy. But people don't realize that what is discipline? How is discipline different than being motivated?
Well, discipline has a little bit of a misnomer to it. It can imply that you're being spanked if you don't do good. But I know that discipline is structure, boundaries. It's creating your own motivation, even if you don't have it.
It bypasses motivation because your future self is what you're making a deposit in. You're avoiding dealing, or you're delaying that immediate gratification to do what you know is best for your future self, based on what you did yesterday, with the commitments you made yesterday. So being disciplined is keeping a commitment, and it's also the highest form of self-love. Right. Because when you make a commitment and keep it, you're saying, I'm important. I'm taking care of myself. And you're one day closer to that future self that you want to be. And having that mindset is really what makes the difference versus going on a diet or taking an injection. The one thing that's killing America today is this huge increase in these medications that people think are going to solve their problems. Imagine this. The 80%, almost nearly 80% of Americans, you have a huge target market for drug companies, right? 80% are overweight or obese, and they're targeting them with a drug that needs to be injected once a week for the rest of your life, and it costs $20,000 a year. Now, there's a benefit to using some of these medications as a jumpstart, but if people are going to stay on them the rest of their lives, which is what probably is intended, just like with diabetes management, these medications are cardiac pills. Medication is not a cure. Medication doesn't get to the root cause. Medication's important. It's necessary in certain situations, but we start with habits first, then nutrition, then supplements, down here medication. Healthcare is not healthcare because they're not focusing on that. They're focusing on really sick care. They're how do we manage people with medications? And that to me, not that there is a place for medications, but it shouldn't be the first line of defense. And that is to me the biggest paradigm shift that I want to get people to be aware of, so that they can look at their health and look at that they don't need to be the average 50 to 60-year-old who's on 7 medications in the United States.
Exactly.
Does not have to happen. Why? Because there's a way to be accountable without letting the food companies who are manufacturing foods to get you to eat more of them, to be addicted. But realize that. But when you become self-aware, when you learn that, you can find ways to eliminate those cues. How do you make a habit happen? You have to make the cue easy. Well, how do you break a habit? You make the cue difficult, or the trigger difficult. So if you want to get up and exercise, put your sneakers or your gym clothes right next to you, right at your bed. So when you get up, they're right there to put on. Some people I know even will wear their clothes to work out to sleep in, right? Whatever makes it easy. But if you've got a cookie jar that's on your counter, you're always going to know the cookies are there. But what if you put the cookies up on the top shelf? Or better yet, you say, if I want a cookie, I got to go to the supermarket to go buy it, or the bakery, and only when it's open, so that you don't make it easy. You don't keep the ice cream in the freezer. You make it packed with yourself, saying, if I want ice cream, I'm going to go where I want it, and this is what I'm going to order, and I'm going to make sure that I do it only this frequently, because it's just this once that I won't that matters, not just this once I'll cheat. Because that cheating attitude, there's no such thing as cheating when you're intentional.
Right. A lot of people are just programmed by the system, the society, their work time, whatever's going on, to just automatically go seek when they crave, rather than even think about it. They don't take the time to think and process the reaction. They just go by the impulse.
Well, that's why self-awareness is so important.
Exactly. And speaking of which, about impulses, we have one final break. I'm going to try to show more of the Hilton pictures, but more importantly, I'm going to talk more about Frank About Health and where we're going after this episode ends tonight. So that all being said, please stay tuned on this episode of Frank About Health right here on talkradio.nyc, Facebook, Twitch, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We'll be back in a few.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hey everybody, I just shown you a little bit of the Hilton photos, but you know what? You can check them out yourself on the internet. There's so many Hiltons around there, but Hilton is going to become more activated as a partner starting in April. And we shall see how that morphs with the way we do our shows, whether we're in person. I really like a lot of that, especially the few that I've done with Karen Live, as well as any other projects that I've been working on. That's a hint right out there, I guess, for those of you remembering a show that I recently did with Emily Schulman. We're actually working on a side project that is going to really expand the narrative of what Frank About Health is as an advocacy platform, not just within talkradio.nyc, but also within the various networks of people that we are trying to reach. Here at NYU Langone Health, for example, what we are doing with Hilton, and among other communities that we are going to be outreaching to and really doing more advocacy work for the rest of 2024. That all being said, I wanted to close that segment by showing again the book that Evan has just introduced and he just discussed in the last segment about, especially in how we have to look at the way we create our habits and our intention, and how we take in the right foods at the right time when we're also really hungry and not just out of habitual eating, and maintain our heart health as well as other health related issues like diabetes and stuff. But that all being said, Evan, why don't you now just talk about exactly what ProAttitudes can do for future heart health clients, or I wouldn't call them patients. I guess like the way you work with them is more on a client relationship, correct? Unmute.
I love that. The mute button. Okay. So, like I said before, I work with business owners, leaders who, and any entrepreneur who are, as they're climbing that ladder to success, they leave their health behind because they thought they had to. It becomes less of a priority. So part of what I do with my ProAttitudes is I help them create a lifestyle that includes their health. And we do that by first, the idea is, how do you become aware? Well, we do a lifestyle challenge assessment. It looks at 7 key areas of their life that they're not aware of where they're having the most challenges. And it will bubble usually 3 to 5 of those key areas are going to come to the top. And those are the things that I'm going to tackle first. So they're going to see everything else is going to fall into place. I also have an inner critic quiz, which they can take, which is going to identify who is it. You know, the one person we talk to more than anybody every day is ourselves. And if it's negative, which is what the default is, it's preventing you from doing all the things that you want to do. It's preventing you from being the person you truly want to be. So if we can identify who that inner critic is, see where it came from and how to quiet it and help develop your inner coach. Okay, like the Yoda sitting on my shoulder, we all have that inner coach that we can develop. A kinder way of talking to ourselves and to encourage us to change. You're going to start seeing that you're going to be able to eat the way that you want to eat. You're going to be able to do the exercises that you want to, increase the activities that are going to help you get back to being more mobile, right? Part of the challenge as people get older, it's all about freedom. Do you really want to spend the last 10 years of your life managing a chronic illness? You know, that's like to me, the worst thing that could possibly happen. What if you could reduce the risk of that happening so that you could spend the time with the grandkids, travel the world, eat at the restaurants that you want to eat at, and also have the freedom to do all of the things that you want to do. That's part of then I come up with a plan of how to get there. And it really, I work with people
Yes.
who are in groups, I work with them one-on-one, or I have a do-it-yourself intentional health program that they can take going through my online program. And all of it is to help people live the life they've always dreamed of, one choice at a time. It's all about
Would you say that the people that you see, I'm sorry, I missed that part. Say that again.
It's all about habits.
It's all about habits. Exactly. Now, would you say that the people you see that may come to you with a cardiac issue also have diabetes at the same time? Would you say a majority of them have that, or they are distinct people that you see? You'll see the diabetic
I
patients,
have
clients.
metabolic conditions right now. The metabolic syndrome will lead to heart disease, diabetes, even cancer, and Alzheimer's. So people think there's all these separate diseases, but doctors want to treat illness, so they'll label them. But they were finding that there are root causes, and these root causes are from our activity, our mindset, and our diet. That if we can get back to really focusing on those root causes, we can prevent or reduce how quickly these metabolic diseases occur and ravage our bodies. We can actually reverse time. There are longevity experts, Dr. Peter Attia, okay, Dr. Eagleman, all of these doctors that are working. And Andrew Huberman has been interviewing. If anybody wants to watch a really wonderful podcast, somebody who's been interviewing a lot of these doctors, so you can get it firsthand. It's Andrew Huberman, the Huberman Lab. He's on YouTube. He's on Spotify. It's on Apple. Podcasting. It's really fascinating. It's coming out so quickly, the information now, instead of it just coming through research that takes so long to get disseminated to the actual media. It's coming from the horse's mouth now, right from the researchers. Really fascinating, the stuff on the microbiome, the idea of how our brains are live wired and neuroplasticity, and how sleep is so important. Sleep is a big part of health too. So all of these things are incorporated into my program so that you don't have to do all the work. So but I make it simple and I make it easy, making it so that you're making a commitment to 3 things every week, and that allows you to see change. The whole idea is to not be stuck. So many people are stuck because they keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. And all I want people to do is to stop imitating what they did yesterday, go deeper, stop hurting themselves, and start taking better care of themselves. Because, like I said before, discipline is the highest form of self-love. So really, people have to start loving themselves more. And then we can start seeing a healthier society.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I do see, obviously, being part of ProAttitudes over the last couple months, that during the week you have your own, I don't know if it's webinar series or podcast series going on through LinkedIn and YouTube. Would you like to tell the viewers and listeners out there about it?
Every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time, I do a LinkedIn Live, and anybody can go on and sign up for that. I also do a Facebook Live. It's within my Facebook group. It's a private group, but anybody can join. It's called Optimized Health for Leaders. Come down, and it's B3 ProAttitudes. So that's my lingo, my handle on Instagram and on Facebook. I'm also on TikTok, and I write every day on all of these medias, including LinkedIn.
Awesome. Overall, I know that you really take care of more than just the heart, but being that it is Cardiac Awareness Month, would you have any last words for those potential ProAttitudes members that are dealing with cardiac issues? And what would you say is the most severe cardiac issue that they could really use your guidance on?
I think the biggest issue today is that people feel completely powerless to change. That if you just decide to make one small change, what is the one thing that you could do today based on everything I just talked about with Frank, if you did it with 100% commitment and 100% integrity, not what you should do, but what you can do, and you did it every day this week, I guarantee you by the end of next week, you're going to feel differently. Let's say you get up and go for a walk for 10 minutes. Let's say you decide to delay eating so that you give your body a chance to digest what you ate the night before, and you end up getting better blood sugar control. What if you gave up soda and you said, I'm going to drink water instead? All of those things, it could be very simple commitments. What if you focused on the stress? Stress to me is probably the biggest issue killing Americans today.
Right.
What if you just focused on breathing? Just taking 2 sips of breath in through your nose and blowing out through your mouth. That's called a physiological sigh. That's a physiological way to stop the stress response. It's a pattern interrupt for your body. And if you did it 2 or 3 times, you're going to notice you're going to feel better. And that stress
And then
response,
you'll also notice it becomes a habit to continue doing it, even if you didn't plan on it.
So it's
I can tell you the
creating
3 changes I've already made in working with you. Every day, I have a full bottle, 60, not gallons, 60 ounces of water that I make sure is gone within 3 or 4 hours.
That's wonderful.
Now, I know you've recommended 100, but it depends on if my stomach can carry all of that.
Start with what you can do, right? And then you increase it until you say, I can't do anymore.
Exactly.
Water is really important, especially with heart health, to stay hydrated. It's very important, right? Also, to make sure you're eating healthy fats like avocado and nuts, and watching the highly refined seed oils, which is the stuff like mazola, or the highly refined oils that are out there.
Olive oil all the way.
Extra virgin olive oil is very much the healthiest oil that we know out there right now, related to the Mediterranean diet. That's the diet that I'm closest to, is the Mediterranean style diet. And again, you'll find all of that in the Habits of Healthy Eating in my book.
Awesome. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are about to close the show, but I have to tell you that ProAttitudes has been working with me. It's still in a slow trajectory, but it's happening. I highly recommend looking at his website and getting a copy of that book, and going through the surveys and quizzes to probably start working with him and improving not just your overall heart health, but your overall nutrition. And if you have other related health issues that you can obviously get concerned over, especially your mental health. That all being said, stay tuned for tomorrow's slate of shows right here on talkradio.nyc, starting at 10 a.m. with Tommy D and Philanthropy in Focus, and at 11 o'clock, ending out the week with Stephen Fry and Always Friday. Next Tuesday, you'll see Dr. Mira Branco with the Hard Skills. And next Thursday, after the Conscious Consultant and Sam Leibowitz, you will see me again on another episode of Frank About Health. And I'm just going to say, if you want to know what it's about, stay tuned. All right, everybody. Thank you for being right here on talkradio.nyc and all of our socials. If you have any comments or questions for me, frankrharrison1@gmail.com. Evan Mestman, you can get him at evan@proattitudes.com, correct?
It's evan@proattitudes.com. And I also subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have a 21-day challenge that I just posted there to help with quieting the inner critic.
Awesome. And yeah, the inner critic, basically, it became negative for some reason or another, but you want to turn it into the positive, because as he said throughout the hour, discipline is the highest form of self-love. So we're going to discipline the night out by checking out, and see you all again next week. Thanks again. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.